Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's got Star Trek. Episode 58. Discovery, Season 3, Episode 12. There is a tide.
Damn it, Michael, look at me!
Osyraa will destroy what is left of the Federation. And she's gonna use you to do it.
No, we have time. Right now, you and me, let's go. We have time. What are you doing? No. We came to the future for you. We followed you. You followed you. We gave up everything so you wouldn't have to be here alone. How can you do this?
I'm sorry.
Michael!
Okay, so Die Hard in Space.
Die Hard.
Die Hard in Space.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Die Hard in Space. That's the episode we just watched.
Yeah, it kind of was.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to get to that in a second, but I guess I'll do the intro action first. Contractually obligated introduction action. This is the It's Got Star Trek podcast. We welcome you
Episode 58.
to said podcast. Episode 58, thanks. I was drawing a blank on that. So this is episode 58 of the It's Got Star Trek podcast, the podcast you are currently listening to. And we are discussing Season 3, Episode 12, Star Trek Discovery. Episode title is There Is a Tide, ellipses.
What?
Yes. Yes, I know we have the same problem because at the end of last episode, I don't even know if we mentioned it, but
We did mention it.
okay, so last episode, we thought this episode was going to be called For the Good of the People, I think it was called, right?
Yeah, it's still listed that way on IMDb.
I know, and it's bullshit because it is, in fact, indeed called There Is a Tide, ellipses,
Oh.
Right. ...
So that's what you're here to listen to.
Okay, now it's changed. They've changed it now, but they didn't. It wasn't like that yesterday, I guarantee you.
They've been monkeying around with these episode titles, and I'm somewhat curious as to what the deal is because the episode titles go up. Are they? Were these the original episode titles, and then they had to change them for some reason, or were they trying to throw us off the trail? I don't think they were trying to throw us off the trail because Su'Kal, changing the Citadel, which is what originally we thought it was called, to Su'Kal, that doesn't really, I don't know, that doesn't help us with anything.
I think.
Maybe they're just messing with us.
Well, wasn't that 70s show? They originally the title was going to be "The Kids Are All Right," which I think they've actually made a show called that since then. But they just change names sometimes. Although it's weird to do it at the last minute. And come to think of it, I think it was actually as of today that it changed. I'm going to go ahead and say that. I'm going to go that far and to say it wasn't yesterday it changed it. They changed it.
Well, I mean,
today.
it was when the episode was listed.
Well,
It was
IMDb.
listed.
IMDb. Sorry. My bad. My fault.
All right. Anyway, so we're talking about this episode, the penultimate episode. Last week we were talking about the anti-penultimate.
The
This week we're talking about the
penultimate.
penultimate.
Next week's is called "That Hope Is You" Part 2. There's no Part 1 in any unless there.
No,
is.
that's the first episode.
It's
Oh.
the first episode.
That Hope Is You, Part 1.
Oh.
Remember we were talking about how then when's the
Yeah.
Part 2 coming?
Then the Unification 3, they pulled that move from a different series.
That move.
Yeah.
They're sneaky producers, pulling moves
Yeah.
left and right.
So the recap at the beginning, it always kind of gives away what's going to happen in the plot because they show Zara, who is that old West dude
Yeah.
from the second episode, and you're like, okay, well, I guess we're seeing him this episode. I guess he's going to have a big part. Although they probably showed it in the preview last week, and I just didn't.
That
see
guy's
it.
useless.
It's not a big deal. It's just kind of like funny that
Tim Roth,
if
light.
if you really want a spoiler-free experience, you don't even watch the recap because the recap kind of guides you into what's probably going to happen.
Like, oh, we're going to see this fella again.
Yeah, but it's whatever,
Yeah, it usually doesn't bother me too much, but I do agree that when it's something so obvious as, oh, we haven't seen this person the entire season, and now they're showing him in the recap, presumably he's now in this episode.
Guess he didn't die in the cold.
It's fun to see him again. He clearly enjoys playing this part. I think he really identifies with this character.
So
The Franz Gruber of this episode.
so he survived the ice, right? And they showed his hand. Do you think
That's a
that
frostbite.
Yeah, and do you think that, and his arm looked all messed up. Do you think that was a good way of sort of saying what happened? Do you think there was a flashback would have been cool, or do you think of something other than? I think that was pretty good in terms of exposition. He didn't harp on, because there's some other things in this episode that were like really heavy on exposition, and this was just a quick side thing. They didn't really need to delve into much information. I thought they did pretty good with it.
Yeah.
Some other stuff, I almost felt like they could have had some flashbacks or something. But then again, the question is, are flashbacks good, or are they just a weird tool?
Because they can slow
too?
things down too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I don't know unless you want to dedicate side episodes leading up to other people's character, like Osyraa, for example.
Which in a longer season, if you're old school Star Trek, 90s Star Trek, and you got 26 episodes a season, you can do a little bit more of that. But
yeah, but she kind of made a hard turn this episode. And then sort of.
Yeah.
They were trying to fill in some of the blanks for her story.
It's
being like, here's a little more gray area for her. And I mean, it's like, okay, you're doing it kind of like at the end. Why not fill in, give a little sprinkle here and there throughout the whole season?
And that's what I was thinking too, is that, it's cool that she has a gray area, but it felt kind of abrupt. And like, if they had
no, I
sprinkled it
agree
in
with
better,
you.
I think that would have been
right, because you're like, okay,
better.
there's a lot that she's talking about going on, and they have like a semblance of like, hey, little democratic values, but they're huge, mercantile.
Yeah, they brought
slavery.
Has Star Trek ever directly referenced capitalism? I'm sure it has to have.
Yeah,
somehow,
they've done it in overt and less overt ways before, and it's been a long conversation.
It seems like they try to avoid those kinds of discussions, even though they deal with those subjects. They avoid like sort of. Like,
it's not generally so overt, but I even that statement I might quibble with my own statement because it depends what you mean by overt. Because especially on TOS, some of the quote unquote metaphors were pretty heavy handed in a good way. I mean, it's like you get the message of what's going on here.
He wasn't joking, Lee.
Yeah, he was not indeed.
Yeah.
He was not joking, Lee. Well, I mean, there's a lot going on in this episode. I thought it would be interesting to at least begin with just the general vibe. I know it's not the whole episode, but as I was saying, the whole Die Hard in space, they made it overt, and I like that they made it overt. In that there were a couple things. Burnham ends up barefoot, stalking around.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
She gets injured and still is like killing some guy. That's similar.
Although before her shoes got taken off, when she was kicking that security officer or whatever, it reminded me of the scene in A Christmas Story where the Santa Claus was going ho ho ho, and he's kicking that kid in the face.
You know what? It also reminded me of the scene where she's kicking. I don't know if we had that character's name. Who died, the regulator who died. But
regulators mount up.
It reminded me also of the scene in Star Trek 3 when Kirk kicks Captain Krug, Christopher Lloyd,
the Klingon.
kicks him in the face.
Yeah.
He's like, I have had enough of you. So there are a lot of homages here, but
I thought this was kind of like a slide though, so it reminded me of like a Santa slide.
it was, no, you're right. I didn't think of that.
But I
you're
didn't.
right.
I didn't make the connection
That's
for the
good.
Die Hard with the shoes off, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, Die Hard and the shoes off.
Because Burnham was like, she was all creeping around. She's all got her things. She's all like
Getting henchmen.
Yeah, she's getting henchmen. She's like, ho ho ho, I have a machine gun now too, kind of thing.
She's teasing the hostage taker over the radio.
Yeah,
and she actually
precisely.
says there's a specific line. There's where she says, "Hey Osyraa, you're going to need more regulators."
Right.
Which is very similar to in Die Hard. There's a line where he says, "We're going to need more FBI guys." So I think it's overt.
As a side note, speaking of regulators, they don't seem to be like Borg weirdos at all. They're too aggressive, like emotionally aggressive to be.
And they take their helmets off and they look like regular old people.
That too. You were talking about Burnham getting that communication device. So the thing is Burnham got the concealing device from Book, and then she proceeds to take a comm badge, which was Regulator ID Theta 431, from her incapacitated enemy. So her incapacitated enemy that they knew would get found at some point. She took his comm badge, which reveals her position instantly. Like, did she?
Right.
But it also gave her the scanning, presumably because those comm badges in the future are also tricorders.
Yeah, it gave her scanning stuff, but was it worth it? Like, because originally she got the concealing thing.
Yeah.
And so she totally broke her concealment, and she actually had a chance. She had a chance to do take backs on that, because when
no take backs.
when that security
Maybe
officer
she believes firmly million, no takebacks.
when she ejected them all from into space, it's always cool watching bodies fly into space in movies.
Whoosh, yeah.
But when she ejected everything into space, she could have just like thrown the comm badge out with it. But instead, no, she like talks on the comm badge, says, "Everyone, I'm still alive." You know, like she could have gone back incognito after that whole space ejection.
Well, didn't she leave the comm badge once? Like once he discovered her, she at least then ditched the comm badge, right? Presumably.
No, she still had the comm badge after the ejection because she was talking on it.
Yeah, but I thought once she finished talking, I think she tossed it aside. Or
I'd have to
something.
look at that.
But it's still, I mean, your point is still there, which is, my guess is, and I haven't been perusing the internet a lot, but my guess is that probably there's some quibbles people have with some of the strategies undertaken in the course of this episode.
And that's one of them. And Dan brought up.
She did some cool like jujitsu on that one dude. That was pretty cool. Like wrapped his leg around his legs.
When she was wrapping her legs around him and like choking him out.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
That was cool. I was like, oh, Dan would like that. I bet that's like some jujitsu.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder how accurate it was. Because like sometimes I can look at stuff like that and be like, that was pretty accurate. But other times I'm like, I don't fucking have any idea. You know, they actually had some kind of jujitsu at the end of Lethal Weapon.
Was it like proper, like actual jujitsu?
It was
or
like
just
some
what
kind
white
of
people call jujitsu?
Racist ass Melly Gibson versus crazy ass Gary Busey.
Yeah, it was a karate chop, a kung fu chop, jujitsu chop, the judo chop.
Or judo chop.
No, it was some kind of
Pork chop.
It was some kind of leg.
Vulcan neck pinch.
It was some kind of leg triangle. I don't know. Oh yeah, they had a Vulcan neck pinch.
Vulcan
in
neck
this episode.
They did. Oh, that's right. They were pulling out all the stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was a
There's
good
a lot
usage
of
of it.
reference to like the TOS kind of stuff and some movies.
I like that because like there needed to be some mechanism for her to take this guy out, so Stamets out, so she could do what she needed to do.
Yeah.
But there was no reason to make a big show out of it with punches and kicks and stuff
Or
like that.
stunning him, or injecting him
Yes.
with something.
Yeah. So
Right.
just
and we
just
know
do the
she knows
Vulcan
how to
pinch.
do that.
Yeah. It's just funny as time goes on in Star Trek and that Vulcan neck pinch.
Vulc pinch.
The
The
Vulc pinch.
The Vulc.
That's what the kids call it these days.
It somehow seemed less sillier in TOS than it does now, but it's okay. And I don't mind. It's just something about it in TOS. It's like
It's always silly when a non-Vulcan does it, I think. You know?
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
There's something it's a little awkward about it.
Yeah.
She's like an honorary Vulcan, though.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
she
it-
is.
I mean, that wasn't at all to say that shouldn't have been there. It's just kind of funny that, like, yeah, it's the TOS. It was always, neck pinch. Now it's like, oh, man, I don't know if that would work like that.
Well, and
Picard does it in one.
yeah, because he mind melded with Sarek.
Yeah.
It's worth noting at this point that at least according to Star Trek, the ephemeral, I don't know, the entity that is official Star Trek, this represented the 800th live action production of Star Trek, which has of course caused a massive debate online, of which I'm not taking a part in because it seems too complicated, which is to how to count the episodes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are saying, some of the other podcasts, like A Strange New Pod and some others, they're all saying they've gone through everything and they're like, no, there's 797. Because it depends on how you count certain two-part episodes.
Yeah.
Some of them, like the pilot episodes that are, presented as a full episode, but then
Yeah.
broken up into two parts, and
Right. Yeah, you have to analyze and sort of do a convincing. They need to have a quorum get together and decide these things.
And I think they counted TAS.
Did they count the pilot?
The pilot. Which pilot?
The TOS pilot?
Well, I think that's another question: is whether or not you count the pilot, because some people do, some people don't. Right? 79 or 80. Right? You know what I'm saying? Talking some numbers. Anyway, so
Quantitative method.
feel free to email us or write us on Twitter with your opinions on Numbergate, the
Numbers.
newest
Numbergate.
controversy.
There's like too many of them.
which there is no answer, because this is people have talked about in the past how certain fandoms like Star Trek, Star Wars, or whatever can take on they can mimic religious institutions in certain ways, and I think that this is an example of that, because this is the question of how you number the episodes is a fundamentally it's like an ecumenical question,
Some
right?
of that weird numerology.
It doesn't have there is no answer. And it's narrow, the difference, whether you're a 797er or an 800er or like an 802er. You know what I'm saying?
So what's going to happen in 3 episodes, or then another sect of the internet will celebrate and be like, haha, now
Yes.
we're really at 800.
Yeah.
Totally.
And they'll spend half the thread like jonesing on other people who thought that the 800 was 3 episodes ago.
We're all old enough to remember the whole year 2000 thing when the nerds were saying the new millennium is not until 2001. I count myself among one of those nerds, but 2000 is when everyone else celebrated because the numbers changed.
Yeah, well, the difference there is that's basic. Like that can be proven.
I know, but that's just so the people saying
If I have to reveal my colors right now.
Yeah, I know they would also say that could be proven.
No, that's because one's an argument, the other is like just a fact of how numbers work.
I'm in no position to disagree with you because I am biased towards your position. So I am not a fair advocate for the alternative.
I'm open to anyone's opinion on it.
Anyone's opinion, and you can send those opinions to feedback@itsgotstartrek.com, but don't do that. Email's fucking lame.
Yeah.
Write us on Twitter.
Email feels as painful as talking on the phone now.
Yeah, Twitter,
reason.
it's @itsgotstartrek, and there's Instagram and shit like that too. But Twitter's good. Facebook is good. Whatever. But the email, I don't know. Write us an email if you have like a real personal question or like a
If you have a really
problem.
personal question, just text Patrick's phone directly.
Yeah, you can text my phone. I'll put my phone number on the thing, and you can totally text, and we'll help you out in whatever way we can.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, Die Hard in Space.
Die Hard in Space. Okay, so Boots coming off.
Boots coming off was cool. There's just it's difficult to wrap your head around this episode because so much was going on, and so much was also we're not aware of. Presumably, we'll find out next week about, and we can have our predictions later if you like about what's going on with Saru, Culber, Su'Kal, Adira.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have no idea what's going on there.
You know, at first I was like kind of bummed that they didn't reference them at all, but maybe that's good because it allowed them to focus more on one thing.
We'll see what's going on. We're seeing what's going on here, and there's a lot. So there's a book ship, which I do believe does not have a name yet.
I was just noticing that. Like,
Yeah.
I had that question today. I was noticing. I was like, wait a second, what do I call this?
I looked it up, and the closest I could find was on Memory Alpha. They said that there's been no on-screen reference to a name. I presume that's correct. But StarTrek.com has published certain fan content that refers to it as the Nautilus, like Captain Nemo's ship in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
I really love this new Star Trek's take on ships and having these sort of
morphing ships.
These morphing ships,
Yeah,
which
it's
these
tight.
so sort of they're detached but connected.
Yeah,
and so it's awesome because
Like the Viridian is a ship, but it's got little bits and pieces hanging around.
And that scene where it was going up to, it was zooming into through the ship to outside of the ship to FHQ. Like when that shit was going down, it was going through all this thing. It was like just this collection of metal bits and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, that's how ships are now, and it's kind of awesome. And it's always fun to watch books ship morph around.
It's got to be stressful to be the computer for one of those morphing ships.
Right?
I was thinking about that while Book was going through that, whatever that conduit was.
The trans warp.
Yeah, the couriers
conduit or whatever.
Yeah.
But
filled with a bunch of wreckages.
Yeah,
and I was like, that computer must be
debris.
so stressed out to have to be calculating all this shit and
it's like,
slurping up all them inputs.
I'm not gonna miss that one. Boom.
Courier network. That's what it's called. Yeah, but it is a transwarp conduit.
Yes.
So everyone seems to smell the insecurity on Tilly, except she's not being insecure at all. But for some reason, they're all going straight towards that. Osyraa would like, when
That's the weapon they're trying to use.
The weapon Osyraa used last one, and that's the one that I think it was Zara.
Totally
was doing on her, and she's being totally confident, but like inside, it's almost like you can smell it on him or something, because there must be something inside that's projecting that. Or maybe they're just going by the fact that it's an ensign.
I think they're going by previous experience and initial impressions.
Just her aura she gave off when they.
I think she is at this point confident. I mean, she certainly appears to be. Now, you could quibble about, again, how quickly some of these things have happened. There's a bit of a give and a take with these shorter seasons.
A bit of give and a take.
You got a bit of a give and a take in a sausage and pepperoni.
Oh man!
And
you serious?
Like my great grandfather was like Italian. It's fine.
Yeah, it's true.
But with these shorter seasons, it is trickier to get the fleshed out, slower development. Of course, you do get to concentrate more time, effort, and money, and all that other stuff on the individual episodes. So pluses and minuses here. But I mean, again, for me, it hasn't bothered me too much because I just sort of accept that's how storytelling works.
Yeah.
And not everybody can be Better Call Saul, which can take 6 seasons to tell like a year's worth of story, which is great. It's wonderful, but it's a very different type of storytelling than what they're doing here.
The scientist guy, he had a whole life, but he just sort of like, I guess all we know from his backstory, we can kind of gather from the fact that he's in some kind of device to aid his movement.
Well, okay, here's the cool thing about that. I was really impressed with this Oriello. His name is
Oriello.
He's Invigilator Oriello.
Wow.
An invigilator is defined by Wikipedia as an exam proctor or exam supervisor who is appointed by the examination board and services for maintaining the proper conduct of a particular examination. He's like the guy who walks around and makes sure nobody's cheating on the test. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting.
What a dick.
Well, because it doesn't seem to be his actual job. But okay, the real interesting, sort of meta interesting thing about this character Oriello is he's played by Kenneth Mitchell. And Kenneth Mitchell has been on both Discovery and Lower Decks in a number of roles. He was Cole on Discovery, also Cole Shaw, who I think was Cole's father, maybe. He was Tenavik. He was the Twirk captain, and a couple of, he was like a Black Ops officer and a Romulan guard or something on Lower Decks. Mm-hmm. He's been doing all this work on modern Star Trek. In 2018, he was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and he has been using a wheelchair since around, 2019, about a year ago or whatever. So, and I've been really delighted to see that he is. They've found excellent roles for him. Yeah. And now he's not even under all the horrible makeup and stuff.
Right. You can actually see his face just like Doug Jones.
And I was like, because like you were saying, Dan, it's like, okay, we're just suddenly meeting this dude.
Yeah, we know he has some backstory, and his relationship with Osyraa seemed good, but she seemed to save him, but then didn't she also save her quote-unquote nephew Talor?
Yeah.
And she fucking murdered that asshole.
But he was, of course, kind of a chump, so he probably got treated less awesome than this guy.
So she probably was obligated to save him, but Aurelio. She actually saw something in him, and so, anyway. So, but it was kind of like, what did this guy go through, but you get a little exposition on that, but there's not much.
There's not much, but with him listening to the Andorian opera, his interactions with Stamets, you get a lot more character from him than frankly you've gotten from Osyraa in multiple episodes that you've seen with her. Yeah. And that's nothing against the actress or anything. It's just his character, they were able to squeeze a little bit more into just a few lines.
His character, it was a little on the heavy side, I thought, in the sense that he always just seemed so sort of chilled, as if he was on pain pills or something. You know what I mean?
Maybe he was.
And I don't want to.
Maybe that's how Osyraa keeps him around.
Yeah, maybe because he's always so soft.
Well, he's kind of blind to the fact that she's a tyrant, and
he seems somewhat naive.
Yeah,
and it seems. It seems a little over the top, but like, I mean, he was all right though.
I dug it.
Yeah, I mean, I dug it fine.
But to each their own.
I really like the lie detector hollow guy.
Yes,
Eli.
That whole thing I found very
really great
interesting.
Faces when like he'd look, the Admiral would look over and he'd be like, yes,
like, she's telling the truth.
She is lying. Can you imagine being the actor and then she says, "Who is he based on? Somebody?" And he's like, "No, it's generated by a computer." You're like, "But I'm the actor. I'm an actual person."
It's got to be based on. I mean, it's probably
on my dad.
It's probably just based on a data set that's so huge that it's pretty much.
You all probably saw that article recently where they had a bunch of pictures and there was no way to tell which ones were the made up AI generated ones versus real ones, because it's gotten pretty solid.
I don't watch those deep fake videos on YouTube.
They're disturbing
because like I'm just kind of against it, and I know
upsetting.
That's I know it's ridiculous. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to be or create, but for me, I'm like, I don't want to support this. It's freaking me out.
All right, so to our listenership, we will post a picture of Dan, a video of Dan, and please deep fake him.
Yes.
In as many scenarios as possible.
Robin Banks.
Asking for trouble. Yeah, that Eli dude.
The concepts, I mean, again, a lot to unpack in this episode, so I know we're jumping around a little bit, but that Eli stuff where Admiral Vance says, well, he's just an amalgam, computer generated, and Osyraa goes off on that little thing about like, why are you like, making it so abstract? Mm-hmm. And, that's a problem. And I guess there was some tidbit of social commentary there about the abstraction layers that the technology we use and the direction our technology is moving in is what we're kind of enduring right now. I think she proceeded to say something like, surround yourself with people that you can trust or something, essentially, is what she was saying. There was different words she used. But the thing is the question here is she trustworthy? Because she does make this sudden change. It seems like her contract is super fair, right? But according to Eli, her contract is awesome. Or treaty. Yeah. Everything, but the thing is, everything sort of leading up to this point indicates that she wanted to do some kind of hostile takeover, right? But suddenly she wants to be fair. But we have Eli telling us this is true. So... And that goes back to the adding depth, but the actions leading up are a little confusing in that, because she never indicated that she wanted peace before. Why didn't she bring it up early? Why is her way of finding peace to hijack a ship and lie to sneak into FHQ to indicate that suddenly everything's like all cool? Like, that's not a good way to begin.
Right. Well, that's what the Admiral Vance was like. Why? I mean, you did all this.
Green bastard.
Yeah. It's like, there you go, Patton.
So. Okay, I have a question then about the armistice. He had to
taste like shit.
He had to. Yeah, that was pretty funny. When she had him read the armistice and was signed that. Are people usually put under that kind of pressure to read a legal document like that, and sign it right away? Like,
no, they have like a group, a team
shit happens
of people
for like over years.
Exactly,
a group of people.
Exactly. And so he's like, let me just read this real quick. Like. I mean, you're smart, Admiral Vance, but come on, that's just like, it's like even a lawyer should get a lawyer, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly, yeah.
A psychologist should see a psychologist.
The first question is, what do you think is going on here with Osyraa's strategy? And I guess sort of folded into that is a subsidiary question, which is she in fact telling the truth? Is she in fact sincere? Or has she discovered a way to trick the Eli program? I tend to veer towards the former for two main reasons. First, they did have that scene where Eli did say, oh, she's lying here.
Right.
So it seemed to be indicating to the audience he's good. It's not like he's hacked or anything.
And what I recently just thought, I was thinking that too, and I was thinking maybe it's possible that because she said, oh, there must be a bug, and originally it's just referring to like, oh, I wasn't lying there. So either A, she doesn't know her own intentions, or B, like there was a bug in her software that allowed her to give Eli... It's like... She was expecting him to say truth because she tricked him. She tricked Eli, and he said false. She's like, oh, there's a bug somewhere, meaning like he shouldn't have said false because of my program, not because I'm not lying. It's because of my program. You know what I'm saying?
And the other aspect of it is the fact that the emerald chain does lack dilithium, right? That's the sort of
running out of dilithium.
It's the resource-based geopolitics thing. And the other factor is that as cruel as we've seen her be, I think you could argue that her cruelty is not sort of psychopathic cruelty, but it's utilitarian cruelty in that she's just all about, I have these goals and I'm just going to take the straightest route to those goals. And if that involves killing my family members or being brutal or whatever, then I'm going to do that.
But when it came to her actually having to sacrifice stuff on her own, she was unwilling to change. And in two forms. One, going to jail. First of all, did she even consider the idea of going? Because she considered,
of course not.
You know, she considered when he said, we're going to want a different face for the change. She
was cool with that.
She was totally, and like, because and then he was like, you can't, be controlling this person. And she kind of gave a tentative, I think, kind of cool stuff with that, but she was kind of against it. And that's one of the things I think that's threatening her. But then, when he brought up jail, she probably didn't even consider that she might go to jail. And
Precisely
I think she's getting executed.
You think she's going to get executed?
No.
I don't know. It's Star Trek, man. I don't think the Federation.
I
don't think they do that.
Starfleet.
They don't murder their prisoners.
Yeah.
They send them to
banish them to a planet.
They send them to New Zealand where they sit on top of little metal boxes with wrenches like Tom Paris.
I mean, as recently as Hun Hao with Talor, she had a bunch of slaves, but she's getting rid of them suddenly.
Hun Hao?
Yeah. Hun Hao, where Talor was.
Where all the junk planet stuff was.
Oh, okay.
So was her intention then? She was like, I want to join forces. I want to do all this stuff. But did she want to do it under the idea that she would end up taking over somehow to turn into some corporate monster, basically? She wants to turn into a corporate, just like monster that like does all this stuff. And, if you're not if that's not against with the Federation what they like, she'll just say, "Oh, but this is what we agreed to," blah blah blah. So, or does she just want to, or does she actually want to be good, but she's just bad at it, can't let go of her power, and doesn't want to deal with consequences on her own. That's the only thing that was keeping her.
It's a little from column A and column B.
Yeah, so she could be telling the truth. She just doesn't want to fucking give up.
But we don't seem to have enough.
But she also still might want to just fuck everything over.
But we don't have enough information. Right. Is part of the issue I have is that all of these viewpoints are potentially where things could go. But I don't feel like we've got a lot of clues as to which way it goes. Right? I really am not clear on it. Now, it could be after next week's episode, I'm thoroughly satisfied by the setup. I'm not dissatisfied by the setup thus far, but I'm not exactly clear what I'm supposed to be thinking in terms of Osyraa's strategy. Is it subterfuge or is it not? Is she sincere or is she not? Or is it a complex, which would be interesting, as you were suggesting, Dan. She really does want to help her people. They're running out of dilithium. She doesn't want to do this, but it's the best route for everyone being like as good shape as possible and still making their money and running their stores, and she can retire. But if it comes down to her like having to go to prison for it, is that the moral quandary they're going to play around with and determine whether or not she's a redeemable character or not? And again, part of the confusion here, I think, is that leading up to this, she's been very very two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Totally. They haven't given us so many clues about her being like, reluctant about this or whatever, right? So I don't know. And then I think the other thing that plays into it are we expecting another shoe to drop about this whole Federation president thing? Because we keep not seeing it.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh yeah, there's a president somewhere. That's right.
And I'm like, okay.
It's Riker, cloned Riker. Well, will save the day again.
Either the Federation president is going to be some sort of really cool guest star. Like, I don't know. I was thinking, like, is it going to be like the Doctor EMH from Voyager, or is it going to be Q? Or like, is it going to be Joe Biden? Like, I don't know who's going to like. Are they going to have some crazy guest star in the last episode? Or
that'd be fun.
Or is there no Federation president? Right. And Vance is just being like, yeah, I'll go talk to the president. I'll be right back. And he just goes into a fucking empty broom closet for a couple minutes and comes back. And I was like, well, he says we're gonna need some more.
That would be awesome.
Yarmark
if
sauce.
They just were that bold about it.
I'm just curious. I don't know what you guys think, but I mean, to me, it seems more and more overt that the president of the Federation is mentioned, and he's supposed to be like right around the corner in an office or something, and we don't.
We never see him.
Right. We don't see,
Yeah, something fishy.
That is a good point, because it seems like he's a million years away, but they don't have that much traveling ability.
You think they're going to get Bill Murray like on Parks and Recreation? They always talk about the mayor, but you never see the mayor,
right?
And then it turns out it's Bill Murray,
right?
Like that would be funny.
I'm trying to think of who else in Star Trek it could be.
Who else in Star Trek could survive to the 32nd century?
It's a cloned.
Yeah, maybe it's
William
a hologram.
Riker.
It could just be
Data.
A hologram of some kind of.
It's Captain Picard, and he like fiddled with his android bits and like survived forever.
There you go.
Permanent president.
Yeah, I bet that's what's going to be.
The Golem.
They should get Kurtwood Smith to play the Federation president, but he can be a different Federation president than because he was in Star Trek 6. He was Federation
right. He was
president.
the president.
Yeah, Picard, the Golem could live.
Maybe it's Captain Sisko. That'd be awesome because he came back from the wormhole aliens.
Oh wow, that would be
just a little late.
And if they just if he just showed up and they referred to him as Sisko but didn't talk about any of that, you'd be like, wait a minute, that would be cool.
And he's like wearing his old uniform and everything. So I don't know. I don't know if Admiral Vance is hiding something or not.
He's being sneaky. He always seems like he's hiding. The Federation always seems
shady.
Like, the Federation, the Starfleet seems like it's kind of shady and they're hiding something, but that's because like all the other species are
kind of shady.
Or the people that aren't a part of Starfleet are all like, Starfleet's messed up, man. You can't trust them. But we don't know if that's just because they're not trustworthy or if Starfleet has actually changed in some fundamental way. I don't think it has at this point.
But then he like defended like Starfleet, what they've been doing for 900 years, the ideals. That's why like Osyraa was getting all pissed off. Like, I don't want to go to jail. He's like, but if you're gonna join with Starfleet, like, this is how it has has to be.
Right. Yeah.
If you're gonna join with Starfleet, this is how it's got to be.
Right. That's right.
To be. I think at this point it doesn't seem like Starfleet's hiding anything incredibly nefarious.
No,
at this point.
I don't either.
For a while it did, but
I agree. Because people on the internet were all like, "Oh, it's going to be some evil."
He's kind of nefarious.
Mr. Cronenberg.
Cronut
Ever
bird.
see that movie Scanners, man? When that dude's head explodes.
I think so.
It's Cronenberg.
So what did you think about Admiral Vance's handling of this situation sort of to begin with? Because he's one of the through lines of this story right from the beginning, where he makes a decision to let Discovery in.
I mean, might as well let Discovery in.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that's the thing.
Why
It's-
destroy a ship?
It's a
good
Star
ship?
Trek-y thing. Yeah, I mean, you're
Yeah.
not going to let the ship crash against the,
Right.
the fucking waves and die.
But as he noted, she was waiting for them like an Altarian spider.
Yeah,
That's
I looked
right.
up
I like that line.
I looked up Altarian spider, and the first thing that came back was Talarian hook spider. So
but
I
that's
don't-
a Star Trek spider, right?
it's the Talarians. It's is an arachnid species with legs of 1/2 meter.
Whoa.
1.5 feet. Miles O'Brien once had to repair an emitter in a starbase in Zera 4 in Jeffries tube surrounded by 20 hook spiders.
Oh, fuck that.
I kind of remember that.
No, Brian has to go through the
Arachnophobia.
worst shit ever. I mean, for real. Poor
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, that sounds like
Hey,
a pretty
maybe
bad
O'Brien's
scene.
the president of the Federation.
Yeah, right?
It's just his head.
And he's like saying, "I love it."
Futurama.
Yeah, like Futurama.
But I really, it's nothing. It's got nothing on that transporter room 3.
Yeah, I know, right? No, maybe the Federation President's office is made up to look like Transporter Room 3.
It's like I talked to a
call it
hologram
number
of
3.
Picard. He
Like
said
in
you're
the
really
old
into
days.
this shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with anytime you come up with the whole like quote unquote strategies, military or geopolitical strategies in a fictional television show, which has limited amount of time to lay out the groundwork and all that. I think one thing that, again, that the newer shows that do have shorter episodes or fewer episodes, I should say, one barrier they have to deal with is that on a show like The Next Generation, for example, they had a lot of clunkers, especially early on. But over time, they were able to not only find their voice, but build all these character moments, even though it wasn't a serialized show, over time, so that then they could do an episode, a couple episodes like The Best of Both Worlds or something with the Borg and Captain Picard turning into Locutus of Borg. And it has that impact because you've been watching them go through adventures for a long time. And I do think that is something that, for better or worse, you don't get that as much with a show like Discovery because we're kind of constantly watching them in high adventure mode in a story spread over a long period of time, which I do like, but it does lack that little bit of extra flavor that you get that increases the impact when these types of things, these kind of big geopolitical events start to happen.
So yeah, going back to being focused on during an episode, for like TNG or something or TOS or whatever, they can kind of just do one crazy thing one week and another crazy thing the other week. We all know that's like classic episodic, get in whatever adventure you want. And yeah, with Discovery, like if you do that in a show like Discovery, I think I brought up the example of the Fly episode in Breaking Bad before, which a lot of people liked it, but a lot of people really hated that episode. And so I think it's this idea that in those kinds of shows, I'm comparing like Breaking Bad is similar to Discovery in the sense that it's like, everything just keeps happening around this one idea. If you go to an episode about something else, people get frustrated because it's like, I'm so invested in this one thing that I want to know that happens with this one thing that I don't want to spend a whole week like wondering about that again. It's like, I thought this Thursday I was going to figure out what happened with this character. And now you're going on some side adventure. And like I said, that works in episodic episodes just by their makeup. But like pretty much what you said. It's just, it's like you can do it, but it's a distraction. And
Deep Space Nine, I think, pulled it off well. First of all, it was more serialized than the average show well before serialized shows were common. But it still had 26 episodes per season, thereabouts, roughly.
did I use serialized interchangeably with episodic? I don't think I didn't mean to if I did.
It's okay. We'll forgive you if that is indeed what happened. Okay. But Deep Space Nine pulled it off. Deep Space Nine was also really good at the geopolitical or galacto-political, I guess might be the better term.
Galacto.
Again, because they were laying out information over the course of many episodes and in some cases many years for something to culminate, like for the Breen to show up and you'll be like, oh, I know the deal. And they've been hinting at that shit for a while. So any complaints I have about this particular storyline are blunted by my knowledge that they it's 13 episodes, right? It's much more compressed, and they've got to decide which information to give us and how to tell a good story doing that. And I think by and large this season they have been telling good stories. Individual episodes have been very interesting and entertaining. A couple quibbles aside here, they've been fairly self-contained. We did talk about last week how there were some story elements where you're like, okay, I'm getting lost. I'm losing track of this story because they're only showing us a few pieces here and there, and I'm not sure where it's going. There was less of that in this episode because it was more like boom, 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 boom.
Action-packed.
And you got to see Bookship flying into the Discovery butt. Which I think you mentioned last week, Dan, about
yes, you did, Dan.
Flying into the butt. The butt
yeah,
when it was autopilot in.
Right, and so this time when they went up the butt, they I guess they were able to do it because the shield went down because the Discovery
Makes
was
it more exciting.
Well, the Discovery shield went down because it had to get into FHQ, right? That's why the shield went down. So they timed that shit exactly.
And the comms were not working.
And it's like Back to the Future where you had to time it down to the millisecond basically to get the shields down. And somehow the shields are down long enough that they can go all the way through. But you noticed it was annoying because they were doing like a T-minus 10 seconds or whatever. They count
they did the countdown.
And as they get closer to 1, they slow their count. And if that's what you want to do, don't say they're seconds because they're not. You're just arbitrarily. So what time world do you live in?
Theory of relativity applied to dramatic structure.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Narrative. The faster you go, the slower.
Was there some
time?
Was the gravity all changing or something? It's like
when
10,
this thing goes
9,
88
8,
miles per hour.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. It would have already happened a few counts ago.
Boom! You exploded.
But
it's the narrative rhythm, brother.
Yeah, this
the
is
narrative
the rhythm
rhythm
of the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a good up the butt ship moment. I liked it.
Yeah, no, I mean I liked it too. The thing I noticed on the second watch, because I was like, something feels weird about it. And I was like, all right, it's that we don't understand the whole thing with the shields and the timing and all that until afterwards, and it's sort of implied, which I'm 100% cool with. But it is very different from on The Next Generation, like we've joked before about how. When there's that the episode where they're in the time loop and the Bozeman is heading towards the view screen and Data turns around and is like, I recommend this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because normally,
just fucking do it, man.
In Star Trek, we're used to somebody using the exposition, which we complain about when it happens too often, but we're still used to the idea. It's like, oh, how about this? We know that they have to drop their shields the moment they enter Federation HQ, otherwise they'll explode.
Yeah.
And then you tell that information, and then it happens. So I'm fine with the way it played out. In fact, I like the fact that they respect the audience enough to say, all right, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They'll figure out what happened, and it'll still fit into the technobabble and the Star Trek. There'll be a reason. It's not some bullshit, right? On the other hand, I will say I did kind of miss having somebody like pause and explain to me what was about to happen. And then have it happen, but it's a little less exciting, I suppose, to go that route.
Yeah, you remember that Lost episode? Did you ever see that Lost episode where they did the side episode with the two criminal people?
Oh yeah, and they killed them off at the end.
Yeah, that was another example of a serialized show that had a side episode that everyone hated.
Yeah, no, they hated those characters. So
I guess there was a little more to that.
The writers were like, all right, well, fine.
We're doing a whole episode on those characters,
we'll
and then we'll murder them.
And it was great too. That was actually a really good episode. It was entertaining.
So, what did people generally feel about the two part with Georgios? Like what? Because that was like the closest you can kind of get to like a side story, like what we're talking about.
Yeah,
in this.
it was totally.
And how it works in episodic because you can do whatever, but in a serialized. I use it. You have to make. It's hard. You have to really decide whether you're going to split off or not because people get impatient. But yeah, did people generally like the Giorgio one?
I mean, I got the impression that people enjoyed the story. You do hear people refer to it as a backdoor pilot, which it was.
Yes.
Which
Right.
it was in a lot of ways. Star Trek has done that before. They did that in the original series. It didn't go anywhere, but they were, they had an episode where they traveled back in time, and it was going to be this whole, this new character was going to have his own new TV show. But it is a backdoor pilot. It's funny because when people mention that, some people mention that in a positive way and some people mention it in a negative way. Like it was a waste of time. I heard some people who simply just don't like Discovery in general say that the benefit of that 2-part episode is that you forgot all the stupid shit they did before, and now I'm reminded about it again.
I'm gonna bum everyone out. At least I'm gonna try.
I mean, I do think there's tons of valid criticism. Go for it, but don't bother watching the show. It's you don't gotta worry yourself about it. There's lots of go watch The Expanse. That's a great show.
That is, and that's basically what I was trying to say is waste of time. Is some people find these side things just kind of like it's like get back to the point.
It depends on I'm sympathetic to Discovery because Discovery.
Don't read George R.R. Martin. Then.
Oh yeah, Discovery was the first Star Trek to come back. And there was a lot of excitement built around it. It was never going to meet everyone's expectations. That's just a fact when these types of things happen. Brian Fuller or whatever, started it out and had this one idea. And originally it was going to be an anthology series where every season was going to be a whole different crew and stuff. Oh, cool. And then they sort of abandoned that. And then they started, people were quitting and getting fired after the first 5 episodes and stuff. The first 2 seasons went through a lot of tumultuous stuff, but it basically structured itself as a heavily serialized, fast-paced series. Okay. And that's what we're getting in the 3rd season. Yeah. But I think by and large, people think that at a higher level of consistency and quality, it's kind of finally living up to what it was sort of originally advertised as in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, it's a lot freer. I think you can go way in the future and you're like, okay, you can do this.
But it constrains them a little bit because since that's the setup, that's sort of they're like, all right, well, that's the setup. Every season we're going to tell this story or whatever. And I think we'll just have to rely on other shows. Like I hear that Strange New Worlds, they're planning to have that be more episodic. They're like, people want that. So that's a show we can be more episodic.
Right. Do you think that Discovery, because at the beginning, definitely for sure, like it was like, wow, this feels really fresh and stuff. Mm-hmm. How do you feel like it's coming together as it's getting closer to the end? Do you think it's working or do you think it's kind of like, I guess we just don't know yet.
I'm really digging the 3rd season.
I like the 3rd season.
Oh yeah, I really like the 3rd season a lot too. It's just like feelings at the end versus feelings at the beginning.
I guess we'll find out next week fundamentally, but I don't know. It's like, to me, I've enjoyed the episodes and I think it's difficult to have an episode or a storyline resolution that's so ridiculous as to retroactively ruin it. It's possible though, and I will grant that it is possible that could happen depending on how things are resolved. And we don't even know that things will be 100% resolved because
I don't see that they would be.
There's going to be more going on, so it might be that they kind of close out one storyline and then they're like, all right, now we're going to do this business.
Well, without giving spoilers to Picard, like that ended pretty good, but there was some kind of sort of weird aspects to.
Yeah, I agree. Sure. Picard, I think you could be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was fun.
All right. I'm not sure what's happening now. But,
yeah, right. Yeah.
I think that would be a fair assessment. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. But again, we'll have to see because a lot of it's going to ride on what the resolution is next week. Because so for example, some people were very happy when Saru became captain this season because they thought, okay, now we can finally not have a new captain every season. Mm. But we're now getting into this storyline where it kind of seems like maybe he's not going to be captain anymore because they spent a few episodes making it seem like he's making bad command decisions. And then this episode, they're showing us Burnham doing all the things you're supposed to do as a captain.
And Giorgio set that up in the episode prior, or the episode or two prior.
And also Admiral Vance, saying like, will you be willing to do what you have to do? And here, she's got fucking Paul Stamets like we came to the future, so you wouldn't be alone.
Right, for you.
That's some heavy shit. And she's just like, boop, pushing the button.
Like, I'm sorry.
Though she was in the right in that situation. Yeah. Because it's a classic, because he was saying, we came to the future for you. It's like, first, she didn't, she accepted it, but like she was going to go by herself. Yes. Like, that's your decision, motherfucker. Right. And it's a classic example of why you shouldn't let people do shit for you sometimes. Because even when you say like no to their help and they insist, right? And so you're like, okay, fine. They will still try to use it as leverage to get their way at some point. You're not living your own life when people help you. They expect something in return.
You're not living your own life. I don't want your life.
People say like, oh, you wouldn't try to take it. Like, so people might say to you, it's like, oh, that person that's helping you, they wouldn't try to take advantage of the fact that they helped you in order to get their way. And that's probably true. That was never their intention. But people get emotional over times when they want something and they will try to throw anything in your face that they can. And that's exactly exactly what Stamets was doing. He was taking some shit where he volunteered, and then he's like, "Oh, now you owe me. Now you owe me. Now you owe me. Your life is mine. Your life is mine." And she's like, "No, dude, this is how it goes." And he wasn't. He also wasn't thinking of the ship. On top of that, he was totally selfish. He wasn't honoring the contract or the ship.
The important thing here is that
he was being emotional.
Good characterization is when both viewpoints are rational and understandable. It doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean you don't agree with one more than the other, because I 100% agree, Dan, that that Burnham is doing the correct thing here. She is thinking about the ship. She's thinking about the Federation, possibly the entire sector, you know, the Alpha Quad, you know, she is putting those things ahead, and that's what she's demonstrating here that she hasn't demonstrated in the past, where her mistakes have often been related to
starting a war,
doing things her way. She always wanted to help the universe or whatever, but often that was like, you know, targeted towards a specific person or something that very closely associated with her, right? So she's demonstrating here that she can, you know,
that was a captain maneuver right there.
Precisely. Yeah.
That was like when Troy had to, you know, put Geordi in that she took the test to become commander, and one of the tests was a holodeck was there was this unwinnable situation, and in order to win, you had to send Geordi LaForge into the Jeffries tube to get fried or something.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then
suicide mission.
Yeah. So and this
send
wasn't
a crewman to his death.
And this was not. I mean, arguably just as bad, because she knows she's potentially she could also say it's like, well, maybe we can still get him, but it's hard decisions, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and they don't even control the ship at this point. I mean, I know they're in the process of taking over, right? They're en route to having everything fixed, right? But they're not there yet. Even at the end of this episode, right? They're like gearing up to it, but they're not there yet. So yeah, Stamets' perspective is totally understandable from the perspective of somebody who, you know, doesn't want to see his loved ones melt to death.
Yeah, that scene was pretty heavy. It was fucking heavy.
I enjoyed it.
yeah, it was like, cool.
It was cool to have a little more play, and when they did a little better with Stamets. It was
Yeah.
like, all right, we're going to give you a little more emotion.
Yeah, it was a manifestation of his personality that we hadn't really seen.
Yeah.
And he's like, directing all this anger at Burnham, who they've been cool and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, wow, this is some fucked up shit. So.
And I mean,
I also thought he was going to be tortured by Aurelio.
Yeah, although that obviously that we quickly found out that Aurelio's like a nice guy.
Yeah. He was like, I am a scientist. You
I want to talk to you.
I like how they referred to the golden age of science that was like 600 years. And it totally made sense.
900
years ago.
And it's funny It's funny thinking about the golden age of science being. It's like science being at a better, more enlightened stage in the past or something like that. You know,
which has happened in real life.
Yeah,
this is a common thing. Yeah, people. You know. I was about to say people forget. I guess some people might not know in the first place that it's not like all technology has moved forward 100% all the time. It's kind of like a haphazard stop and start. You forget shit, and then you relearn shit, and sometimes you relearn better shit. Sometimes it's not as good. You know, like the whole Roman concrete business, where we only figured out how to make that shit like a year and a half ago or some shit, right? Super excellent concrete. Apparently,
better roads.
Mixing seawater is the key. If y'all want to tip.
Right.
Seaweed?
Yeah, seawater.
Semen?
We all know what you think.
Oh, seawater.
We all know what you think.
Only I may dance.
Only you may dance. And so, all right, we've seen the Burnham side of the whole command captain-y thing there. Next week we'll
and
find out.
So Adira, if I mean, I imagine they're not going to. Maybe they'll start following the Hugh. Every time I think of Hugh, I always think of TNG, the Borg Hugh. But anyways, that's neither here nor. I mean, it has to do with
That's
Star
neither
Trek.
Hugh nor there.
Hugh over there.
Oh, all right.
Culberisms. From Dan.
So I guess so if we think what's going to probably happens, those people are going to be stranded. Like Culber. Saru and Adira are going to be on the planet. So the question, and Sakal, right? Yeah. So the question is like, are we going to follow them, or are they just going to sort of disappear?
Well, I'm very curious to see how they resolve.
Or they have to like.
Well, we haven't also talked about when Burnham was doing her little John McClane stuff, and then she calls out. She gives a little personal message.
Oh, yeah, right. That's right. Yeah.
We haven't talked about
her
that.
mom.
And she's gonna
because her mom's all Kawat Malat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you think Will they show up with them swords in the next episode?
I forgot about that because she sent the message to her mom.
That's a big. I was like, oh,
and then
why is she doing that?
Almost alluding to afterlife somehow because she was saying like,
with Dad.
Yeah, because I think she was implying like I might die. That's why I'm sending you this message.
Right.
Well,
Might see Dad again in some
Right.
far.
Well, didn't she have just been
future.
stabbed and?
She'd been stabbed in the
Yeah.
leg. I mean, obviously. I mean, she's
that
she's
sucks.
when
but-
she
in a hostile environment.
Man,
Yeah.
when she got stabbed in the leg, she stood up all wrong. She got stabbed in the left leg, and then when she stood up, do you notice she planted her left leg on the ground to stand up?
I'll have to
and
watch that again.
And she put all her pressure on her left leg while she was standing up. She should have planted on her
the
right leg.
yeah,
she
yeah,
hurt her
yeah.
left leg in order to stand up.
Michael
Right.
Burnham's really tough, dude.
Yeah,
She's
it's
badass.
that Vulcan training of like
Unnecessary.
get all that human instinct out of you.
I think we should test this out. I got a knife
Oh, jeez.
right over here.
You guys.
You call that a knife?
Oh,
If everyone donates to our non-existent Patreon, if we meet a certain level, Dan and I will each volunteer to stab ourselves in the leg.
And it'll be like the
And we'll
scene
see.
in Scream
We'll try to stand up.
when they're stabbing each other.
I don't know.
No, we're not going to
be
stab
rough.
each other in the belly like a
You gotta
couple of-
stab. You
couple of
got. You got to stab him 3
Stab it
times.
3 times? No, you don't got to stab it 3 times.
So I've been
That's a
wrong.
different movie.
I've been wrong about a lot of what's going to happen. So either the writers are smarter than me, or I'm smarter than the writers. But it seems like maybe they'll have to blow up all the dilithium and stuff to somehow prevent the burn, or like maybe they have to somehow
Burn Part 2.
They have to like do something to make it all disintegrate and everyone and they all die.
I think they might put the sphere data.
Yeah, and
With
we haven't talked
Su'Kal.
about all
Maybe
that stuff.
Su'Kal
The
and
robots.
the sphere data can hang out together.
So it was
Robots.
So Patrick, Patrick mentioned last week about the sphere data, and he was pretty right. So Patrick seems to be more on point than I am.
Yeah.
I didn't
like
know.
the-
I didn't
the
know they were
robots
gonna,
at the end?
I didn't know they were going to come in and
Robots?
What
Be
were,
like Wally.
what were those called? Like T28.
They were
Yeah.
called dots.
dot 23s.
23s. Yeah.
Because
So
the dot 7s are
'Cause we
on the
finally get to
on
see
the
them.
Discovery.
so at the
The
very
old ones are the dot 7s.
At the very beginning of the episode, they did a very non-subtle reference to the sphere data, when they were basically saying,
Yes.
she came up, she's like, the code, they couldn't delete this code. It's
Right,
this
it was
movie
the
from
Charlie
before.
Chaplin.
And of course, in the last episode, the sphere data
wasn't
picked that up.
Buster Keaton.
Buster
sorry.
Keaton.
And
yeah.
and in that past episode, we know the sphere data picked it up, and like that was a very obvious sort of. Like, why would they just talk about that, reference that for no reason? So it's very obvious that the sphere data was going to come into play later in the episode, and it did. And Patrick was right about that.
Damn right. Mark it down.
Damn right.
Mark it down.
Yeah. So,
Put
now
that
what-
in your notes, Dan.
Yeah.
in my nodes.
Put that in your note. In your
Damn, why
snake
you
leaf.
talking shit?
It's a podcast. This isn't talking shit, Dan.
It's got talking shit, Dan.
I'll show you talking
I'll
shit.
show you
It's
what that
This is what we call in the podcast industry entertainment.
Die Hard 2.
What do we call it? Dilly dally?
Dilly dally.
Dilly dally.
Now we haven't dilly dallied one fucking bit.
Did you
in this
know
episode?
those
Pretty
dot,
strong, this one.
those dot 23s, which were like Pixar-ish, they
Yes.
look like Wally's.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, too cute?
You're very
They
cute.
just not too cute, just looked a little too Pixar-y, like it didn't belong in the real world. It didn't fit into the real world.
Into the
I was okay with them being
grimy
cute.
Star
Just
Trek.
they seemed kind of like out of place, but they had 4 fingers. They were doing some devil horns thing at the end because
Really? I have
yeah,
to
because
check
if you
that
look,
out.
they had 4
They were
fingers.
raising
like
their
most of-
hands because they all wanted to be, they're all like, wow, who?
Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
they were
but they
just volunteering.
No, but they put their middle finger
You're
down.
right, because they have a weird claw thing. They have Homer Simpson
So they were
fingers.
doing a devil horn, sign of the devil.
So here's
horn.
what I think.
Rock on,
I
baby.
think and I can't wait to talk about this next week because presumably we'll have resolution on this particular thing. But when you see them, I do think they're a little cute. I'm not against cute, but they might be too cute. I don't know yet. What will
we're dot 23s.
what will help?
3 cute.
They've got different colored eyes, so you can tell them apart. So we're gonna
Like
have to tell
Ninja
them-
Turtles.
We're gonna we're gonna have to tell them apart. So they got different colors.
But they all have that voice, right?
They all have that because they're all the sphere data. But
Hello,
so,
I'm the dot 23. I want to help you.
Excuse
that
me,
the-
can I help you?
I don't remember if that's what they sounded like.
I don't think they did.
But now that's what I'm remembering. And you've fucked up my memory, so that's all I'm hearing now. But I think if they have these dot 23s, they're so cute that I think what they have to do is have these dot 23s like really fuck up some dudes next episode. Like
Yes.
fuck up some regulators. Like some
Yeah.
fucking
They need to regulate.
It was a
Like
cold
reach in and
black
just start
night.
pulling the
Yeah.
pull the heart out of a regulator.
Yeah, the pull a heart. A heart. That'd be cool to see a heart.
You
come out.
you go cuteness at a certain level. You got to undercut it by having the cuteness turn to violentness.
Do you think?
That's the old saying goes.
as they rip out like a spine?
Yeah, a spine or a heart.
Something like, you know,
or I could
Mortal
see
Kombat.
or imagine one of those dot 23s rushing up to one of the regulators, tapping it on the back, and it turns around and then just punches into its belly, grabs its
rips
intestines,
out its
and then
guts.
scoots away all comically fast, unraveling the regulator's intestines, and the regulator's like, oh! And he's all chasing after, trying to like stuff it back into his belly, and then it's Buster Keaton music is playing in the background.
That would be cool.
And they were the dot was all like, I didn't like that very much.
No, I would say, did I do that?
Speaking of Die Hard,
Okay.
you know the policeman from Die Hard?
Yeah, Reginald.
Oh yeah,
Reginald
Family
Val
Matters.
Johnson?
Family
Yeah.
Matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Family Matters.
Family Matters, Urkel, Reginald Vell Johnson, Die Hard.
Did I do that?
Did I do that?
Oh yeah.
Did
Die Hard.
I do that?
Also named Carl, I believe.
Carl.
Yeah.
And both
Carl.
characters were named Carl.
Right.
Carl.
Coral.
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 I think it was just Carl.
Coral.
I just think it was Carl.
Okay, God.
That's a form of dilly-dallying.
I've overwhelmed myself.
Did I do that?
Yeah,
You did.
Oh,
You did.
snap.
So
Podcast.
Rin, he kind of like got unceremoniously eradicated. Like when they just blasted Rin, the character Rin.
That was unfortunate.
It was just kind of funny. I
It
kind
was
of
just like boom.
Yeah, I kind of liked it because I thought, it seemed like he might die in the laser fight they had.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like he was probably going to die. But then it was funny, she just blasted him and like it was nothing and he just disappeared. You're just like, whoa, okay,
Book
I
is
guess
all
he's
like,
gone.
what the fuck?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I wonder if Book really was going to help him out because he seemed like, that seemed out of character for Book to be that,
Well, he was trying to help him out.
I think
that
so. Yeah.
accommodating.
Yeah, but I think Book
But he didn't want
felt
to.
sorry for
He had
him.
some plan, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He must have had some
Or
kind of.
He was
figured
a
he'd
good
come up with a
hacker.
plan.
He was like, well, this guy is helpful.
Yeah, I mean, they showed him being friends with that guy back in the slave camp,
Right.
So they already had some sort of relationship
Yeah.
going.
Do you think Stamets was too forward when he was saying that Adira was his child? That's a little forward. They haven't, I don't know, suddenly she's his child. It's like.
Because she's like a kid and it's like a surrogate father figure.
He
Yeah.
also clearly was trying to get in good with Aurelio because he
Yes.
saw
Because he was a father.
Yeah, he saw the
Yeah.
piercings, the Orion piercings that indicated Aurelio was a father. So good for him for catching that.
Yeah.
And so from an
And plus,
hostage
Stamets
interrogator
hated,
thing.
Opera in like the first season.
He used to, but then he started liking
it for Hugh.
Yeah.
So-
But yeah, so anyway, I
It
also,
was this weird buildup.
because it's a little weird, but I think that they were simultaneously showing how much he cares for Adira. Again, you could say, okay, that's quick, but come on, what are we going to do? It's 13
Yeah.
episodes.
I hope they don't get rid of Adira. So
No,
soon.
I don't think so.
Adira is going to be
Adira
around
is-
for a while.
Right.
But
Isn't Adira like it's 16?
yes, yeah, Adira will be around.
That doesn't.
for a
I mean,
while.
but that doesn't mean
But-
like they're not going to get.
They
rid
love
of
to
her.
murder
No,
children
no.
on this show.
Kind of do.
Oh, there's a child. Let's murder them. Oh, they're very
This
intelligent.
is a New
Let's-
Year's special.
Let's murder them even more.
children.
Murder children.
Murder children. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Murdered children.
Oh, snap.
In Star Trek.
Oh.
Oh, it's not gonna happen.
Oh. Because
you-
she took like the.
Oh, what is this
radiation pill.
tomfoolery?
No, but I mean, they might.
Hijinks.
Maybe they have to blow up the planet for some reason. I don't know.
Oh.
They might have to. I don't. Yeah, we'll see about that.
So this whole this whole now book saying, there's more than 100 lifetimes of dilithium for the chain. Well, that's just for the chain, and that's still pretty scarce. You want a more permanent solution. Hopefully, they have a plan in place to use the dilithium to find more dilithium. But it's obvious now that
regrow the tardigrades.
it's a total scarcity. Do you think Roddenberry would have been into this sort of dystopic future where there was suddenly scarcity and talking about capitalism again?
Yes.
Because didn't he dislike
totally.
DS9?
Kind
Yeah.
of.
Didn't he? He
Yeah.
disliked DS9, didn't he?
Well, because
Did
he
he?
wasn't involved in any of that. He disliked Star Trek 2. I mean, he's starting with Star Trek 2 is when they pushed him out because they were moving things to be more overtly militaristic.
Right.
Where he.
Well, he wasn't involved in DS9, but did he make any comments on it ever?
He died in 91.
Yeah,
Oh, did he?
was dead.
Yeah.
Forget
before
me.
that.
I don't know shit.
So he was around when it was being initially developed, perhaps, because it did premiere in 92.
So
he
Star
died
Trek-
in late 91. I
Okay,
believe.
so Star Trek 2. He thought it was 2.
Yeah, but so.
And he wanted those characters. I was saying he wanted all the crew members to not ever have any strife ever
But he
with
had
each,
that
with
show-
each other because he
what-
wanted them to always get along.
What was that show, Andromeda? Wasn't that? I think that was based off of an original Gene Roddenberry script he was trying to get published. I could have it confused a little bit in my head with some of the other Gene Roddenberry projects.
Tech Wars?
But, Gene Roddenberry had a project.
It wasn't Tech Wars?
Robotech?
Or Tech Wars, wasn't that William Shatner? Did the
Tech Wars,
Yes, Tech Wars
that
is
was
Shatner.
William Shatner and his
Shatner.
ghostwriters did the Tech War novels, which are entertaining. I read the first couple; they were entertaining.
Okay.
But some of them somewhat prescient for today's world because they're all you take like computer chip drugs basically.
Cool. I'm into that.
You could
Melt those
pretend it's like
brains.
means social media or something like that.
Dr. Leary.
No, but anyway, Roddenberry played around with ideas. Long story short, he played around with ideas of a rebuilding a future kind of thing. About like a time, basically people out of time, like bringing experience from the past to help create like a new future, right? So I think there are aspects of this
People
that he might
out
like.
of time.
But Roddenberry's such a complicated character because
Discovery.
he created Star Trek. We know he had the originally the cage. They thought it was too cerebral, right? The network did, so
Yep.
he made it a little bit more adventure-y or whatever. And had a lot of success with Star Trek. When it came to the Next Generation, he had kind of tried to go extra super hippie about it and have no interpersonal conflict, and everything to be external and all that. And I think the producers, they felt once they got rid of his influence a little bit after the first couple seasons, they were able to tell better stories. Because interpersonal conflict is necessary for drama.
Yes.
People don't have to be hating on each other.
Right.
You could definitely
Well, right.
argue
That's why
it gets
it was really
obnoxious.
frustrating for the writers. Like,
They got to always invent some spatial anomaly or this or that, and
Yeah.
everything's got to work out in the end. And as we know, it didn't always.
The rear end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It didn't always come out well. So Roddenberry, it's always very difficult when you're talking about Roddenberry in the Star Trek world because in some ways he was, of course, a visionary and had very interesting ideas about imagining a better future. On the other hand, he invented the Edict symbol in order to sell merchandise, and he made lyrics that were never used to the theme song so that he could get some of the money
really?
each time the Star Trek theme song was played. He got lyric money for it, even though, so it's not like he was this wonderful guy.
Gotta make that cheddar.
So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question, and I do think about that about all the Star Treks that came after. I think it's a valid question to ask. What do you think Roddenberry would think about it? On the other hand, Roddenberry, he's creating shows that represent the time they're in, and that's what you get. For better or worse, Discovery is made in the late 20-teens and now into the 2020s, and that's going to reflect the world that exists out there.
Sucks.
Yep. Well said, friend.
Thanks.
fidelity is always the issue with replication. That was what Aurelio said when they were talking about.
I liked
the
when he said
tardigrades?
that. I liked when he
I
said
think
something
he was
about
talking
that.
about. It was about how they were trying to, I guess, use cloning or something
to grow the tardigrade.
Yeah,
DNA.
to
Yeah.
grow the tardigrades.
Which
instead
is
of replicating.
And again, they've left that's got to be a hint as to what's going to happen next. Is he might be? I think it's clear from the narrative storytelling tropes that he is now seeing Osyraa more for who she is.
Yes.
He's waking up a little bit, and now he's going to, in some way, next episode, help our crew to bring down Osyraa. That's the prediction. I think it's a pretty solid one. And presumably, he's now in a position, by this hint they're giving us, that he may, in fact, be able to replicate the spore drive. And what does that mean? Maybe
Right.
that's what.
and then maybe Stamets can go on his own mission or something.
Yeah,
Right.
he can retire from having to be all stressed out all the time.
Right.
Yeah,
Or
so
he
you can
be
go
the
save-
captain of some science
Maybe
vessel.
it'll allow him to go save Culber and Adira.
yeah.
Yeah, could be. It could be
Yeah,
that if they do
Saru.
the fast Star Trek style, or it could just be that they've now created this character and placed him in such a way that now we know that that's something that's realistic. If they'd now say maybe next season they're like, oh, by the way, now everyone has spore drives, we can be like, all right, we know why, because he was able to do that. But I just found it very sexy how he said that line, because he was talking about like the vitality. What was it, the vitality of
So
growth or something? I can't remember. What did he say?
I don't remember. I didn't write it down, but I want to be clear. I was fine with that character Aurelio, but it's like that line though, for example, it's just the way he said everything.
With the
It's so-
opera music in the background.
Yeah, it's just so floaty and over the top, and it's like
It's cool.
oh.
We're on opposite sides of the coin here, but
No,
they're
no,
both totally valid.
Yeah, I didn't have any overt issue
I cannot
with it.
disagree with any of your characterizations. It's just it made me all tingly.
Yeah,
So
it was
fine.
fine.
What are you gonna do?
It was fine. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
You're gonna
Enjoy it.
What
Enjoy it.
are you gonna do?
That woman, when the security person, when she went out to space, she her body broke away like right away.
into pieces.
Yeah, suddenly she's in all these pieces. It's
Damn.
like shit. Makes me wonder.
And she was holding Burnham's boot.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was-
I think she might have had both of her
Both of
boots.
them, yeah.
Her leg is cracking
Right
off.
off.
Yeah,
It's both comical and sort of horrific.
Yeah, so they talk about how, in Total Recall with the eyeballs bulging out, nothing like that would happen, and it's not as dramatic as you'd think. But I wonder in space how soon until you break apart
Right.
randomly.
I
don't
think
know.
you can survive. My understanding from what I've read on the internet, looking things up on the internet and finding out information. Some of it's real, some of it's not. So I don't know which one this is.
It may look like boogers, but it's not.
But I read that you can survive for about 1 minute outside in the vacuum of space.
And then you totally break apart into a
And
million pieces.
Then you die.
No, but you're
That's how you die, is not from being cold or suffocating or your organs. It's
Your
because you
lungs.
fall
you
apart.
don't. By the way, you don't die from being cold.
You just
Not
shut
initially,
down.
because
Well, I wasn't implying that you did. I was just clarifying that the way they die is from falling apart.
nor was I implying that you were implying any such thing. I'm just commenting a little known fact that the vacuum of space is insulating. Like there's no medium to transfer the temperature through. So the heat from around your body actually stays around your body for a little bit longer than you might think, because it's a vacuum. It's like a thermos. A thermos works in the same principle. You have a vacuum of air, so there's no conducting material for the heat or cold to transfer through.
Space is weird.
What you do die from is, because of the vacuum, the boiling temperature of liquids is dependent on the atmospheric pressure, which is why the boiling temperature changes as you go higher up. The boiling temperature gets lower. If you're in the mountains, you boil water at lower temperature, which messes with some recipes, because some
Yeah, when
recipes, the
people
water
cook.
does not get hot enough. It only gets to like 90 degrees if you're
Right.
up in the fucking Himalayas.
Yeah.
So you can't actually cook the things the way you need to cook them, right? In space, when the vacuum there's no pressure, that means the boiling point of your blood and saliva and everything is exceeded. So all your blood and the flesh, the liquids in your flesh and stuff start boiling out of you. And that's the unpleasant part of it.
It sounds unpleasant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boiling sucks. The whole idea of burning
Boiling
to
alive.
death, that's like the worst.
But it would be like
Joan
a
of
cold
Arc.
boiling,
Really bums me
because
out.
you're
Yeah.
boiling even though your temperature's not going up.
There was
It's
a
just
scene-
your everything's evaporating.
It's
still awful.
Yeah, that sounds off. Still, that's an interesting way to boil. Everything's just evaporating.
Maybe
I bet
get
it's
eaten by a
fun
space shark.
for like 10 seconds. I bet it's like pop rocks on your tongue.
I remember seeing some movie with this fantasy movie. It wasn't very good, but one of the scenes.
Was it Dungeons and Dragons from the year 2000?
No. Although they did refer to these things as titans, and they weren't these giant things. They were these little things, and I was really disappointed.
Was it The Wrath of the Titans?
No, it wasn't that either.
That movie wasn't that bad.
It's not important though. Is what I was trying.
Remember the Titans?
So there was just a scene where they had this metal horse thing that was the size of, it was huge. You could fit like, and you
A
put
Pegasus?
and you put people inside of it.
Is it a Trojan horse?
No, it.
Trojan
Oh, is this the torture shit they do?
I'm explaining it as
It's
I'm-
the torture shit.
Okay, let me explain it,
Okay.
and then you can ask questions.
All right.
So it's this metal horse thing that you can fit a few people in. I don't know how you fit them in. You open a latch or whatever. It's on coals. It's made all out of metal, and you fit as many people as you can. And this thing is like getting literally red hot, and
Right,
that's
and
how.
you
And they
roast
close
them.
the shit, and you're
Yeah.
roasting inside this metal
Yeah.
shit. It's freaky because it's like your body wants to get off the hot metal, but you
do.
can't. Yeah.
And you melt.
Yeah, so it's totally torture. So maybe, is that what you were thinking, Patrick?
Happy 2021.
We're
Yeah.
talking about
learn all
old school
sorts of
medieval
facts.
torturing.
Yeah, it bummed me out to think about that.
Well,
Really
Yeah,
bad.
but that was medieval days, man. They did some horrible stuff back then.
And they do some horrible stuff in
stuff
the,
right
in the
now.
Emerald Chain.
Yeah, the Emerald
as,
Chain is...
as Aurelio
Yes.
found out.
Yeah, she turned hard, man. It's like, she's talking about how, we've changed our ways. We changed our ways.
she
I
just
want to
wants to
negotiate.
destroy the
I want to
Federation.
negotiate, get rid of slavery. I want to do all this great stuff. Look at these great contracts. And meanwhile, Zara is telling Burnham that he wants to use her skull as an ashtray or something.
At least he's honest
Candy
about it.
dish.
Yeah, right.
He's,
A candy
he's,
dish.
he's honest about it,
You
right?
think he puts like that old school old people ribbon candy in it?
Oh, no. Ribbon candy.
It's just loose candy.
Yeah, loose candy.
Oh, with crumbs of candy.
What was it?
But it's just
hard
like
candy.
it's just hard to believe that she's really, and maybe she really believes she's doing this, but she's just so like inept at it. She doesn't know that she's fucking it all up,
And this
or
is-
maybe she's lying. We
This
know
is
that's
where
the question.
we will have
We'll
to
find out.
wait until at least next episode. If I don't know if
On
her
the next
character will stick
episode.
around longer than that, because right now we can't determine conclusively whether or not this is somewhat sort of haphazard characterization or if it's leading to someplace. It could be that it is haphazard characterization. She's just a two-dimensional character. They add some weird nuance here, but since it's so abrupt, we're not clear on whether it's subterfuge or not. So it's throwing us off a little bit as an audience. And if it ends up being good character development, there's still the opportunity for that. But at the same time, it could very well be it's just this is just not a super well written villain, and they're just writing the person the way they need to be written to get whatever point across, which is a little less forgivable when you have a plotted out story over 13 episodes. As we noted, one of the benefits of serialized storytelling is supposed to be that you minimize wasted story elements and poor characterization, right? In theory.
In
Right?
theory, communism works. In theory.
Simpsons reference.
Simpsons.
Simpsons did it.
Yep. What was that food? The food looked surprisingly unappetizing this round. Every time there's
The
food,
apple
every
made of
time there's
shit?
food in Star Trek, it looks all colorful and great. This was colorful, but it looked unappetizing. Part of it was because they used an apple, which they shouldn't, because apples turn brown within minutes. So
And I guess they're trying to make the point that I think
Hungry for apples?
I agree with you. It didn't look as good, and I think part of it was they were trying to make the point that Osyraa was trying to be all like, "Hey, in a capitalist society,
So you can eat a
you
real
can get this
apple."
stuff imported anytime
Right.
you want." In the middle of winter, you can get
An
fucking
apple.
avocados
Right.
right in your fucking hand. And Vance's point, and
Strawberries, you can still buy strawberries in the grocery store.
they were trying to convey that the Federation is more like, no, we've got what we need.
Yeah.
We recycle our shit into this, and so we didn't even decorate it nice.
pretty good for shit. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of, that was
Yeah.
funny. It was funny. I appreciate it because it was
I-
like kind of unnecessary, but it was kind of fun. For some
Yeah.
reason.
I
It's
was
like,
like,
whoa.
whoa.
Yeah,
And well
it's like
delivered.
it's like one of those questions. It's like, when does He-Man go to the bathroom? It's like one of those questions. Where do they get this stuff? They don't talk about it. And maybe that's why the apples were brown. Maybe it's why they got apples, because they wanted them to turn brown to make you think of shit.
Yeah,
Hungry for apples.
I think you're onto something there. Actually, it makes sense to me. I don't know. Another
Space
thing.
253.
Where does He-Man go to the bathroom to?
They don't tell you, bro.
No, okay. So before we wrap it up, I think the last thing to talk about is
That's
how
what she said.
in season 3 they've done a great job of doing more with the bridge officers, right? So Nilsson, and Owo, and
the Morse
Reese
code
and
was
Bryce.
good.
Yeah, that scene, it all culminated in that scene. It's still too brief in my opinion, but that was so awesome. Where again, they built up enough with these characters that scene pays off here,
Right. And
where they
Book is kind of us in
Yes.
that scene, because
He's
then
like, what
all
the
of a
fuck's
sudden-
going
He was
on?
like, wait, you guys could have done that the whole time?
Mm-hmm.
When the fuck did you bust that out? And he's like, oh shit.
and especially from his perspective of somebody who's like keen on joining Starfleet. He's
Right.
like, oh man, I gotta learn Morse code.
Right. Yeah, Morse code. What was
First
that
year of
ancient
Starfleet.
ass shit you were doing?
But it was cute. It was clever. It made sense. I like anytime.
nautical.
I like when the plan includes just aggravating your captors.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just always great.
It was funny but kind of weird when so the crew started pretending to fight to distract the regulators, and they were like basically like and then Tilly goes, "Don't think Osyraa would really like this." It's like a weird voice. It's like some kind of sassy, snarky
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
I was like, she was just trying to push buttons there
Yes.
on those guys. It's kind of like,
I mean, yeah, it's warranted
It was
from her
funny.
position.
It was
gonna
good, and I think it's something the fans have asked for. The fans were somewhat annoyed, I think, myself included, that you had all these other characters and they weren't getting involved. And again, that's because of these streamlined, hyper-focused stories. It's just something you have to deal with. But in a Star Trek show, I do think you missed that. You missed that aspect of, look at all these other people we're seeing all the time. We don't even know their fucking names.
Right.
So they're teaching us their names. We're learning more about their characters. And I really hope that's something they expand on. I think that's how they can continue to make this show more interesting and more engaging, is to involve those ancillary characters in more adventures, and they've done a good job of it this season. But I hope they do even more of that.
Well, there was an exchange between Zara and Book when Zara was like, "Till the next time," and Book goes, "Looking forward to it, sweetheart." And they were both like, "Hey!" They like gave each other a bro point.
It's because they know each other. They're both couriers.
Yeah, right. So it was funny. Yeah, and it's funny because like normally when people do like one's laugh and they're both laughing, and they're kind of like, "Fuck you, man," and they're still kind of like, "Fuck you," but there was a part of them that was like, "Yeah, buddy," like they connected on some level right there. Yeah, that's a good point because they're both the couriers. So. Yeah, that was cool. Oh, the Andorians are the best singers because they in the right hall, that one Andorian singer. How many layers of overtones?
Fucking
isn't it
four.
Like
Four.
It sounds like such nonsense.
Does that mean
Yeah, I
anything?
know.
Such an annoying exchange.
I was going to ask my musical peeps. Does that actually mean anything?
And so I don't know how the
I don't
antennas.
know.
Because I'm not a musician.
Do the antennas like absorb the sound and then shoot it back out and split
That's
it
what I
off?
didn't like. I thought it would have been the antennas allow them to receive data
Yeah, that makes-
helps them adjust their voice. But he indicated, Aurelio indicated that it actually reverberates inside their antennas like they're
like-
fucking duck-billed dinosaurs.
Like
Yeah.
it hits it like a
Right.
sound prism and it like goes off all over the place. Yeah, I don't know.
They're not speakers. They're not like little like phonograph.
Yeah.
Like, little,
That'd be
like-
awesome if they were shaped like little speakers on these stems with little tiny
you could aim them or like swivel them around.
That'd be
You could be
awesome
talking to
That'd be cool.
you could talk to two different people at once. That's silly.
That is silly. That's why that would be like a rock band in some sci-fi show, and you'd have one of those characters as like the rock singer, and you'd never see that alien anywhere else because
Rock band.
what I'm saying is really important to what we're talking about right now. And
What are you saying?
I'm just
Galaxy High.
just kind of talking.
Just-
Galaxy High.
One of these
Galaxy
guys
High.
are talking.
Jibber jab.
Okay, well, I mean,
Jibber jab.
we covered most of the main bits. Are there any odds or ends? Odds or ends.
I covered most of my odds or ends, but I will say holding double phasers is bullshit. That's bullshit. At the end when there were
when
some
the
people,
crew-
like the
they-
rifles are fine, but the two
The
phasers.
two phaser when it's like
Now, when they had like
But they
two
don't have any
different
recoil or anything.
That's what I was. that was the only.
Nobody's holding it.
That was the only thing I was thinking is there's no recoil, but it still seems like kind of like it's not really going to help
Do you think there's a class in Starfleet when they're teaching you the combat exercises and the professor is like, don't do that. It looks silly. Just don't hold two phasers.
Don't,
you don't,
you don't
need-
hold your phaser to the
you don't need
side.
two phasers.
Don't tilt it. Don't tilt it.
It seems like because if you have to aim it, you still have to move one over to the other side and redo the aiming. It seems like it would make more sense just to have one.
I guess if
and
you're,
follow it
if you're
around.
just shooting point blank at a bunch of people, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're in small quarters, it gives you twice the firepower. So,
Yeah,
but
it's
I don't know.
it can look a little silly.
I don't know.
It can look a little silly.
Hey, a little silly.
All right, odds and ends. Any other odds? Any other ends?
Oh, that space traffic. When they're in the wormhole of the space conduit.
Oh yeah, in the thing that protects the Federation HQ.
Yeah, and
The u.s.s. song.
And they say something like it's I forget a world-class ship or
Yeah, because it's the u.s.s. song.
yeah.
And then I don't remember if it was a song class ship or what, but it's these big behemoth, fish looking things, whale, dolphin, monster looking things. I don't really know what they look like. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was
And presumably they can do some
odds and
morphin
end.
action. Yeah, that is that is an odder end.
A nook and cranny.
A nook and cranny.
Nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
Osyraa is a minister. She's the minister
right. She
Osyraa.
became a minister.
And she didn't say first minister or prime minister. So she may not, I mean, again, it's one of the things that we're a little confused by because we've already been told that the Emerald Chain is a larger entity and that Osyraa is like running like one section that's
of
sort
it,
of the
the
closest to
mercantile.
closest to the Federation.
Yeah.
And then she's negotiating directly with Admiral Vance, who says he's negotiating on behalf of the Federation president, who we don't even know if he exists
right,
anymore.
but he's still doing Starfleet stuff.
Maybe the head of the Federation is also the head of the Emerald Chain, and nobody knows.
That would be
That would be a twist.
hilarious, and it is,
Twist.
and it's Bill Murray.
Yeah,
But yeah, so we don't know entirely the political layout. They've given us bits and pieces, I guess, enough supposedly.
Yeah, but not really.
Yeah,
Not
so like,
enough.
is Osyraa the lead? Is she a faction of the Emerald Chain, but like the most powerful faction? I could
Right.
buy that, and so
Yeah.
maybe she has a leadership role in that sense. But I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, there's one episode left to resolve a lot.
Yeah.
They don't have to resolve it all because they could continue a lot of these storylines at other times.
That's the thing is there's a lot to resolve. That's always seems to be the case. is that they'll leave some things open-ended till the next season.
Yeah.
It's frustrating when they don't resolve anything by the last episode. It always feels like a
letdown.
Yeah, just a tease. Just like, come on, man, you got to give me some payoff. And it seems, but Star Trek's usually pretty decent about some kind of payoff.
Yeah, they usually will reward you.
Yeah,
with something at the end.
Burnham goes after she was like, I guess after she got stabbed or something.
But then she takes the phaser, it's kind of like Rambo 3 kind of thing, and she like fixes herself. It's like I was like yelling. I was like, "Where's the medipack?" Like, just the medikit.
Oh, is that what she did?
Shit?
Yeah, is that what she did? She did some kind of
it was like Rambo 3 shit, man. And she was
like,
sealing it up with like the phaser. It was
cauterizing it?
Yeah, she was cauterizing the wound.
Because that's a lot of blood.
Yeah. Because she was definitely
even if
dripping
you're
a lot
Michael
of blood.
Burnham,
Yeah.
You don't have a lot. You don't have like limited. You don't have limitless blood.
Right.
Sorry, I'm having trouble speaking.
That's cool.
And then
Limitless.
I think that was the
Limitless.
scene. Then she goes, "Here we go, Paul." And I don't know what that was. I guess Paul Stamets. I guess.
Paul.
She was,
Yeah, Paul.
like, "Here we go." Why did she say "Here we go, Paul"? Just like, I'm gonna rescue you now. I don't know. It was just a weird thing to say. Was it to remind the audience that she's going to get Paul? And that's
Yes.
like, that was. It was just. She was just speaking to the audience by saying "Here we go, Paul." It was reminding us that after she like cauterized her leg from being shot and in the Jeffries tube, she was like, "Okay, let's go." And then she was telling us, well, where we're going is we're going to go to Stamets and we're going to save him.
I think one thing that they haven't quite gotten right yet, despite all the improvements of the third season, they still haven't figured out where the dividing line is between, like, in a serialized show, you do need to recap, but you also have to assume that people are going to watch these like fairly soon after each other. And in fact, the vast majority of people for the rest of time who will watch these episodes will watch them either in a binge fashion, a bunch of episodes in a row, or very close proximity.
Yeah, or like a day.
Yeah, and so you've got the recap, and Dan already discussed some of the potential issues with like recaps, offering spoilers and stuff at the beginning of the episode. But then you have information that's conveyed in the course of the episode, which is harder to divide out. And then you see examples of that where you're like, okay, this is clearly to remind me of something,
right.
But like I don't need reminding because I'm a fucking nerd and I'm watching Star Trek and I'm like fully aware of as much. I've got all the data. I've got everything I need to know going on here. So I don't know. Odds and ends.
Odds and ends.
I've got all my odds out of my ends.
I got all my odds out of my ends too. How about you, Jesse, Jimmy? Any more odds and ends? Any other?
There weren't
things?
too many odds or ends floating around in this episode.
No, it was
all kind
very
of,
action packed.
It was a very action packed kind of focused.
I guess
Die Hard.
Point-
Die Hard.
point-
Die Hard in space.
Die Hard.
I will say one
Just the Quat Malat.
One final comment, one final odd and end from me is I thought the music is really good in Discovery, and I think that they've developed these musical themes over time, and they've matured to a point where I've just started noticing like more clever uses of different little motifs from Discovery popping up at different times. And of course they toss in like the Andorian opera and stuff like that. But I like the music scape, particularly in the last part of this episode. There was tons of like fucking bassoon, like TOS style, like super bassoon action. So I don't know. That's my odd and end. My final odd and end for this particular episode. Good. All right. So if we've exhausted everything we have to say about this,
I could take a nap right now.
This apple tastes like
we've
shit.
got it all out there on the table.
Pretty good for shit.
Splatted out there on the
for
table.
apples.
So we will close things down for this evening.
Okay.
And you will hear us next week when we
better.
close out the season with the 13th episode of Star Trek
We have to
Discovery.
figure out what we're going to talk about after that.
With your butt.
We
Let's
believe,
talk about my butt.
which would be a great
yes.
topic, by the way.
Jesse's got to work on his butt now.
Jesse got
Jesse's
to work
got
on them glutes.
Jesse's got some high quality butt.
Jesse got butt.
We believe
I
it is
don't have to
called.
work on my butt.
We believe next week's episode is called "That Hope Is You," Part 2,
And that's at least believable because there was already a
Part
part one.
one.
Of I hope it's you.
and it
Yeah.
rhymes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
"That Hope Is You," Part 2.
Everything rhymes.
So
All of life led up to this one moment where that rhymed.
we look forward.
Look at that. The first episode is That Hope Is You.
Yeah.
But they don't call
it's
it.
true.
They don't call it part one, so they must have added the part two later, or they
No,
just
they called it part
They
one.
call it
call
part one.
Part one.
I remember, because
Where
I had
have
to,
you been?
because I had to type that long ass title into the website.
For the first
That
episode?
Hope Is You, Part 1, comma,
the very
part
first.
1.
I never
Very
like
first.
That Hope Is You.
I got to get better about looking at the actual title of
Part
the episode when I watch it.
One.
Somehow I just
one.
never noticed the episode title.
What's because they don't show it on the episodes anymore.
I just go to the next number. Yeah.
I was so happy in Lower Decks when we got
The one that doesn't have
when
the
we were
scene
watching
thing.
Lower Decks and they show the episode title like in the old days.
Yeah.
Because Picard and Discovery, they don't show the episode title when you watch the episode.
Oh, right.
Another thing I miss. Because
Yes.
it's like, come on, show the episode title.
Mandalorian does a good job of
Yeah,
showing
they
the
do.
Yeah.
episode title.
I mean, they put it
beginning.
front and fucking center, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they make it seem like part of the whole
Bum, bum.
experience. you
Yeah,
know?
with the music and the
Yeah.
doodads and the floo-flies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I love
Yep.
it. So anyway, That Hope Is You, Part 2.
Part two.
We will discuss that next week.
Maybe we'll talk about the Mandalorian when Discovery. It also
Mandalorian.
has
got
a
the
little bit of Star
Mandalorian.
Wars.
Yes.
And so, in the meantime, you can get us on various communications channels. You can get us on email at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com. That's feedback@itsgotstartrek.com. You can get us on Twitter, Instagram, etc., using the @ symbol and the words "It's Got Star Trek" @itsgotstartrek. Come join us on Twitter. There's all sorts of fun stuff going on Twitter in particular, but also Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us. But definitely check out the website if you haven't already. www.
Come back here. You ran away.
www.
Too far.
itsgotstartrek.com. And one of the great benefits of the website, we're not selling you anything there, not yet anyway. I don't know if you.
We don't really
That's how we get you, because
That's
we're
how
not doing it yet.
We're playing the long con.
Yeah.
Where we don't ask for money until like 5 years down the line, and then we're like, give us your fucking money. But what you can do is
a long con.
you can look over our library of previous episodes, and my main point being that when there's Star Trek episodes airing, we cover them live. But in the intervening times, we poke around, hop around the Star Trek universe, picking episodes of movies and stuff and discussing them. And at the website, you can sort by your favorite series.
Maybe you like Enterprise,
Or maybe your most hated series.
maybe you like Voyager, and there's 2 podcasts you can listen to.
Maybe you're just not feeling it one night. but tough luck. Because this is Fuck City.
Jesse, I think to clarify,
Sometimes the guys are all tapped out.
Jesse,
Check your lease.
I think you need to clarify that they're not two podcasts about Voyager. You should say there are 2 podcast episodes about Voyager, because saying there's 2 podcasts about Voyager.
Oh, you're right.
Makes
I'm
it seems
sorry,
like there's 2 total podcasts that exist.
I bet
dedicated
you.
to
There's more than
I
that.
bet you there's
I know,
more.
yeah,
I bet you
yeah.
there's a
Because
whole lot.
we did
more.
the
I
pilot.
know. Oh,
we did the pilot caretaker.
well, whatever. Okay, you're talking about something.
I'm talking about episodes.
Okay, yeah.
Because he said there's 2 episodes, but we did Caretaker,
We
and we
did
did Year of Hell,
a
part
few,
2-parter,
yeah.
and we did Jesus. I'm forgetting the name of it. The one where
that
the
episode?
Oh, we did another one.
where the
yeah.
doctor hangs out with the chick with the guy on the planet that's all fast.
Oh, right.
Wink of an eye. Is it blink of an eye?
yeah, you're
Blink of an
right.
eye. And then we did the TOS Wink of an Eye, which is an unrelated story, but we did it because it had a similar title. All of this and more can be found on itsgotstartrek.com.
If you've been missing out, man, you've been missing out.
You may have been
miss
missing
out.
out. So check it out. All right, that's it for us tonight. Talk to you next week, deeper into the new year.
It's got it.
And this has been It's Got Star Trek, and we
It's
look
Got Star
forward
Trek.
It's
to
got everything.
to you hearing
got
us in the
awesome
future.
people.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
It doesn't quite taste like the real thing, does it?
I've never eaten a real apple.
Well, how sad. Apples are a thing of beauty. If you want to talk about oppression, you should start in your own mess hall.
It's made of our shit, you know. That's the base material that we use in our replicators. We deconstruct it to the atomic level and then reform the atoms. It's pretty good for shit. And we don't have to commit atrocities for it.